The phone call came on a Tuesday morning while I was reviewing quarterly reports from my various companies. I was sitting in my home office, a converted bedroom in my modest two-bedroom apartment, when my father's number appeared on my phone. "Hi, Dad," I answered, multitasking as I scrolled through revenue projections on my laptop. "Claire, we need to talk." His voice had that serious tone that usually meant someone was in trouble or needed money. "What's going on?" There was a long pause, then a heavy sigh. "I'm afraid I have some bad news about your trust fund." I stopped typing and frowned. "Pie what?" "Your trust fund. The money your grandmother left you when she passed away 5 years ago." I set down my coffee cup and gave him my full attention. "Dad, I don't have a trust fund." "Claire, please don't make this harder than it already is. I know this is going to be upsetting, but your mother and I made a decision about the money." "What money?" "Dad, Grandma Rose didn't leave me any money. She left me her jewelry and her recipe collection." Another pause, longer this time. "Claire, your grandmother left you $400,000. We've been managing it for you, giving you an allowance from the interest earnings." I started laughing. I couldn't help it. "Dad, what are you talking about?" "What allowance?" "The monthly payments we've been sending you. The $3,000 every month." My laughter got louder. "Dad, you think you've been giving me $3,000 a month from some imaginary trust fund?" "It's not imaginary." His voice was getting defensive. "We've been managing your inheritance responsibly, giving you a modest allowance so you could focus on your computer hobbies without worrying about money." I had to put the phone on speaker so I could wipe tears from my eyes. This was the most ridiculous conversation I'd ever had. "My computer hobbies?" "Yes, your little websites and whatever it is you do with those machines all day." "Dad, I need you to slow down and explain this from the beginning. You think Grandma Rose left me $400,000. I know she did. It was in her will. And you think you've been giving me monthly payments from this money?" "Yes, $3,000 every month for the past 3 years. Until now." "Until now what?" This is where his voice got smaller. "Claire, your brother Kevin needed startup capital for his business venture. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and he needed $180,000 immediately or he'd lose the deal." I felt a familiar knot forming in my stomach. "Please tell me you didn't." "We used your trust fund money to help Kevin launch his company. But Claire, you have to understand this is going to benefit the whole family. Kevin's business is going to be incredibly successful, and when it takes off we'll be able to pay you back with interest." I sat in stunned silence, trying to process what I was hearing. "Dad, let me make sure I understand this correctly. You think you've been giving me money from an inheritance I never received, and now you've spent this imaginary money on Kevin's business." "It's not imaginary money, Claire. It was real and now it's gone. I'm calling to let you know that there won't be any more monthly payments." I started laughing again, but this time it wasn't from amusement. It was from the sheer absurdity of the situation. "Dad, I hate to break this to you, but I never received any inheritance from Grandma Rose except her jewelry. And you've never given me $3,000 a month. That's impossible. We've been transferring money to your account every month." "What account?" "Your checking account. The one at First National Bank." I grabbed my laptop and pulled up my banking information. Sure enough, there it was. Monthly deposits of $3,000 from Harrison Family Trust for the past 3 years. "Oh my God," I whispered. "What?" Dad asked. "Dad, there are deposits in my account. $3,000 every month, just like you said." "See? I told you." "But Dad, I never noticed them because..." I started laughing again, this time so hard I could barely speak. "Because what?" "Because $3,000 a month is pocket change to me. It's like loose change in my couch cushions. I literally never paid attention to deposits that small." Silence on the other end of the phone. "Claire, what do you mean it's pocket change?" "Dad, do you want to know what I actually do for work?" You play on computers. I run 4 technology companies. Last year, my combined revenue was just over $300 million. The silence stretched so long I thought he'd hung up. "Dad? Are you there?" "Claire, that's not funny." "I'm not joking. Do you want me to email you my tax returns?" "You can't be serious." I pulled up my portfolio management app and checked my liquid assets. "Dad, my checking account, the one you've been depositing $3,000 into every month, currently has a balance of $14.7 million. That's just my spending money account. That's impossible. Want me to prove it? What's Kevin's new business? He's opening a chain of gourmet food trucks. He says it's going to revolutionize street food. I quickly pulled up my investment tracking software and ran a search. Dad, what's the name of Kevin's company? Rolling Gourmet, I think. Why? I found what I was looking for and started laughing again. Dad, I own Rolling Gourmet. What? Kevin came to me 6 months ago looking for investors. I liked his business plan, so I funded his entire operation through one of my investment firms. I own 60% of the company. The silence on the other end was deafening. You're telling me, my father said slowly, that Kevin used your trust fund money to start a business that you already own? There was no trust fund money, Dad. Kevin used his own money, the money I gave him as an investor, to start the business I'm already funding. I don't understand. Here's what actually happened. You and Mom have been taking $3,000 out of your own savings every month and depositing it into my account, thinking it was money from an inheritance that never existed. Meanwhile, I've been funding Kevin's business venture through my investment company, not knowing you thought you were using my money to do the same thing. I could practically hear his brain trying to process this information. Claire, if you're really making that much money, why do you live in that tiny apartment? Why do you drive that old car? Because I don't need material possessions to feel successful. The apartment is comfortable and convenient. The car is reliable. Why would I waste money on status symbols? But we thought, your mother and I assumed. You assumed I was struggling financially because I don't live ostentatiously. You created an entire fictional narrative about me needing your support, when actually you've been giving me money I never asked for and didn't need. How long have you been? I mean, when did your business become successful? The first company took off about 7 years ago. The others followed. Dad, I've been wealthy longer than you've been sending me these payments. Why didn't you tell us? I considered the question carefully. When would I have told you? You and Mom never ask about my work except to wonder when I'm going to get a real job. Kevin's the one with the business ideas, remember? I'm just the daughter who plays on computers. We never said that. Dad, 3 months ago at Kevin's birthday dinner, you introduced me to his girlfriend's parents as our daughter who's still figuring out her career path. Silence. Last Christmas, Mom asked me if I was planning to go back to school to get practical skills for the real world. More silence. And just 2 minutes ago, you called my businesses computer hobbies. Claire, we had no idea. That's exactly my point. You had no idea because you never bothered to learn what I actually do. You made assumptions based on my lifestyle choices and never questioned them. I heard my mother's voice in the background asking who he was talking to. Put Mom on speaker, I said. A moment later, my mother's voice came through. Claire, honey, is everything okay? Hi, Mom. Dad was just explaining how you've been sending me monthly payments from a trust fund that doesn't exist. What do you mean it doesn't exist? Your grandmother left you that money. Mom, Grandma Rose died with about $12,000 in her checking account and a house that needed $50,000 in repairs. There was no trust fund. But the lawyer said. What lawyer? Mom, I was at the reading of the will. I inherited her jewelry, her recipe collection, and her old photographs. That's it. I could hear my parents whispering to each other. Then where did we get the idea that there was money? My mother asked. I have no clue, but you've been taking $3,000 out of your own savings every month and giving it to me for 3 years. That's $108,000 of your own money. Oh my God, my mother whispered. Plus the $180,000 you just gave Kevin, which brings your total to $288,000. You've basically given me nearly $300,000 of your own retirement savings while thinking it was my inheritance. Claire, we can't afford that, my mother said, panic creeping into her voice. I know, Mom. Which is why I'm going to transfer $350,000 into your account this afternoon to cover what you've given me plus interest. You can't just transfer $350,000, my father said. Dad, would you like to see my investment portfolio? Yes. I pulled up my wealth management dashboard and took a screenshot. Then I sent it to both of their phones. Check your texts. I waited while they opened the image. Is this real? My mother's voice was barely a whisper. Those are real numbers, yes. Total liquid assets of $847 million across various accounts and investments. $847 million? Give or take a few million depending on market fluctuations. Claire, my father said weakly, what exactly do you do? I develop software platforms for businesses. My first company creates inventory management systems for retail chains. My second company does cybersecurity for financial institutions. My third company develops AI-driven customer service solutions. And my newest company focuses on sustainable energy management systems. How many employees do you have? My mother asked. Across all 4 companies? About 2,800 people. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear my neighbor's dog barking 3 apartments away. Claire, my father finally said, we owe you an enormous apology. For what? For treating you like a child who needed our financial support. For not taking your work seriously. For assuming you were unsuccessful because you don't flaunt your wealth. And for spending your money on Kevin's business without asking, my mother added. There was no money to spend, Mom. You gave him your own retirement savings while thinking it was mine. But still, we should have asked before making that decision. Actually, it worked out perfectly. Kevin's business is doing great and now he has 2 funding sources. His investment from me and his loan from you. When the company goes public next year, you'll get your money back with a very nice return. Kevin's company is going public? My father asked. The food truck concept is just the beginning. We're expanding into catering, meal delivery, and eventually franchised restaurants. Conservative projections have the company valued at around $50 million within 2 years. And you own 60% of this? I do. Which means Kevin's business success is partially my business success. I could hear them whispering to each other again. Claire, my mother said, I have to ask, if you're so successful, why didn't you ever tell us? I thought about how to answer that honestly without sounding bitter. Because your love for me never seemed dependent on my professional success. You loved me for who I am as a person. I was afraid that if you knew about the money, that might change. That's ridiculous, my father said. We're proud of you no matter what. Are you? Because 5 minutes ago, you called my work, computer hobbies and assumed I needed you to manage my finances for me. They had no response to that. Look, I'm not angry about this, I continued. It's actually kind of hilarious. But it does show how little attention you've paid to my actual life and career. How can we fix this? My mother asked. Start by asking me about my work instead of assuming you know what I do. Ask me about my goals, my challenges, my successes. Treat me like the adult professional I am instead of like a kid who needs guidance. We can do that. And maybe consider that just because someone doesn't live ostentatiously doesn't mean they're struggling financially. You're right, my father said. We made a lot of wrong assumptions. Also, I need you to call Kevin and explain this situation to him. He needs to know that the money you gave him came from your retirement savings, not from my inheritance. We'll call him today. Good. And Kevin needs to start making payments back to you immediately. I don't care how successful the business becomes. He can't just take your retirement money without paying it back. We'll make sure of that. I looked at the time on my laptop. I need to get back to work. I have a conference call with investors in Tokyo in 20 minutes. Of course. Claire, thank you for being so understanding about this. Thank you for trying to take care of me even when I didn't need it. It shows that you love me, which matters more than anything else. We do love you. And we're incredibly proud of what you've built. I love you too. And I'm proud of you for raising a son who has the entrepreneurial vision to start his own business, even if the funding got a little complicated. After I hung up, I sat back in my chair and shook my head. Of all the ways I'd imagined revealing my financial success to my family, this wasn't one of them. But as ridiculous as the whole situation was, there was something touching about the fact that my parents had been quietly trying to support me for years, even when that support was completely unnecessary. I opened my banking app and initiated the transfer to their account. $350,000 would more than cover what they'd given me, plus interest, plus a little extra to make up for the stress of thinking they'd lost my inheritance. Then I called my assistant to push back the Tokyo meeting by 30 minutes. I had another call to make first. Hello. Kevin answered on the second ring. Hey, it's Claire. We need to talk about Rolling Gourmet's funding structure. What about it? Did Mom and Dad tell you they were using my inheritance money to invest in your business? Yeah, they mentioned something about that. Why? I started laughing again. Kevin, you're not going to believe this story. 2 hours later, after explaining the entire situation to my brother and helping him set up a payment plan to reimburse our parents, I finally made it to my investor call. The Japanese investors wanted to discuss a potential merger that would bring my cybersecurity company into the Asian market. It was a $200 million deal that could triple my company's international presence. As I walked them through the technical specifications and market analysis, I couldn't help but smile. My parents might not have understood my work yet, but they were about to get a crash course in what their daughter actually did for a living. Because next week, when the merger was announced and my company's valuation hit the business news, they'd finally see that their daughter's computer hobbies were reshaping the global technology landscape. And maybe for the first time, they'd realize that success comes in many different forms, sometimes even in the form of a modest apartment and a 12-year-old car. 3 months later, my parents came to visit my real office, all 40,000 square feet of it, spanning 4 floors in downtown's premier business tower. They met my executive team, toured our development labs, and attended a company meeting where we announced our expansion into the European market. Claire, my mother said as we stood in my corner office overlooking the city, I can't believe we never asked to see your workplace. You never asked because you thought I worked from my apartment bedroom, I pointed out. We were so wrong about everything. My father was studying the awards and recognition plaques covering one wall of my office. Business Weekly's Entrepreneur of the Year, the Mayor's Award for Innovation, the Governor's Award for Job Creation. He turned to me. How did we miss all of this? Because you saw what you expected to see instead of looking at what was actually there. Well, we're looking now, my mother said. And we're incredibly proud. Good, I said, because Rolling Gourmet is opening its first brick-and-mortar restaurant next month, and Kevin wants you both at the grand opening. As his business partners. Business partners? I convinced him to give you a 5% stake in the company in exchange for your initial investment. When we go public next year, your $180,000 investment will be worth about $2.5 million. My father sat down heavily in one of my office chairs. Claire, this is too much. No, it's not. It's what families do for each other. We take care of each other even when the help takes unexpected forms. I walked over to my desk and picked up a framed photo, the only personal item in my otherwise professional office space. It was a picture of our family from last Christmas, all of us laughing around the dinner table. You know what the best part of this whole crazy situation is? I said. What? You loved me and supported me even when you thought I was unsuccessful. That's the kind of family worth building a business empire for. And as I looked at my parents, really looked at them maybe for the first time as the successful adult I'd become, I realized that all the money in the world couldn't buy what I already had. A family that loved me unconditionally even when they didn't understand me. Everything else was just pocket change. The merger with the Japanese investors closed 6 months later, making headlines in the business press and adding another $847 million to my net worth. But the real success story wasn't the money or the business growth. It was the monthly family dinners where my parents actually asked about my work, listened to my answers and celebrated my achievements with genuine understanding and pride. And it was watching Kevin's business thrive under the dual guidance of his sister's business expertise and his parents' loving support. Sometimes the best investments aren't financial at all. Sometimes they're just about taking the time to really see the people you love. The phone call came on a Tuesday morning while I was reviewing quarterly reports from my various companies. I was sitting in my home office, a converted bedroom in my modest 2-bedroom apartment, when my father's number appeared on my phone. Hi, Dad, I answered, multitasking as I scrolled through revenue projections on my laptop. Claire, we need to talk. His voice had that serious tone that usually meant someone was in trouble or needed money. What's going on? There was a long pause, then a heavy sigh. I'm afraid I have some bad news about your trust fund. I stopped typing and frowned. Pie what? Your trust fund. The money your grandmother left you when she passed away 5 years ago. I set down my coffee cup and gave him my full attention. Dad, I don't have a trust fund. Claire, please don't make this harder than it already is. I know this is going to be upsetting, but your mother and I made a decision about the money. What money? Dad, Grandma Rose didn't leave me any money. She left me her jewelry and her recipe collection. Another pause, longer this time. Claire, your grandmother